I thought that Northern California and Southern California were one and the same. I thought that San Francisco and Sonoma would be right next to the water like LA with beautiful sandy beaches and sunshine, when in fact these areas up here are still part of the Pacific Northwest. And Tahoe was a spot that I always wanted to go to, and it took me 27 years to make it there, and it's taken me by surprise. It's an area that is chock full of granite-covered mountains, beautiful forests, and a spot that, after I'm done with this wine adventure, I've considered of possibly moving back there. Now, Lake Tahoe is extremely close to all the wine regions. It's not a wine region in its own right, but within a day's drive, you can be in Napa, Sonoma, Russian River, and even down here by Temecula and Paso Robles, which is where we've stopped today. So since we arrived in Paso, we're staying at the inn at Peachy Canyon, and we've decided to take about 12 days off, and we need a little bit of R&R.
Paso in the early 80s, when we arrived, was still a pretty small horse town, about a population of about 8,000 people. It's now approaching 30,000. The biggest changes that I've seen since we've been here is, of course, the proliferation of wineries. We're now up to almost 300. We came here, my wife and myself, with our boys who were both 5 and 6 at the time, for no reason other than to find a place to live, to raise our kids in the country. We came from San Diego. We eventually started as home winemakers, as hobby winemakers. I was pounding nails at the time, a carpenter. Nancy was teaching tap dancing classes. By 1992, we'd been recognized as one of the top 100 wineries in the world, producing Zinfandel. It's the majority of our wine is Zinfandel. We do 9 different Zinfandels now.
Moved to Paso and I was about 8. Being out on 25 acres, with a few other kids around and dirt bikes and guns and all that good stuff. This'll work. I can hang here for a while.
A question that does come up often is what is Peachy Canyon about in over its 25 plus years, almost 30 years? Wineries are about wine. But I think more importantly, the message that Peachy Canyon has tried to get across is that we're all about family.
I think the reason I came back to Paso is because I like the camaraderie we have down here. It's family oriented, so there's a lot of helping each other out and really working together here.
I'm not gonna lie, I've made my way down to the winery here at Peachy Canyon a couple of times since we're staying just across the way. But today's the day that we're really gonna be checking out what Paso and what Peachy Canyon is about.
Became the head winemaker in '02. I did 15 years. Started another project with my brother and doing both, and I always wanted the best for Peachy and I wanted the best for the Chronic brand. Towards the end, I started realizing if there was ever an opportunity that I could put the winemaking in somebody else's hands for Peachy, I would consider that. I had been friends with Terry for a long time.
I knew Josh and Jake when they were still teenagers riding around on dirt bikes off Peachy Canyon Road.
And I just had gotten wind of it, and it was right before starting a harvest.
Didn't even miss a day. They found out I was free agent, they hired me, so I started the Monday after my 2 weeks notice. What I like about working at Peachy, Doug gives me creative freedom. I've got a really good crew. It's way better to work for families than it is to work for corporations.
We hope our wine reflects the beauty of life and the enjoyment of food, and as well as wine. And if we bring them together, and if we can bring them together in that community or that setting, that to me is Peachy Canyon.
Now that we're in the barrel room, he's actually shown me the Bailey Vineyard Zinfandel. And he said he has numerous different single vineyard Zinfandels that he's got aging here in all these barrels. And so Terry's back here trying to find me a Clevenger vineyard that they've worked with. And we're gonna go through and we're gonna taste through a few different single vineyard Zins. And I heard that they even have an experimental block where they've planted 17 different clones of Zinfandel here in Paso Robles at their vineyards to see what Zin grows the best in Paso.
I think the soil types here lend themselves to making very good Zin. And again, I said it earlier, but the really cool nights and the warm days. So we get hot days and the Zin gets ripe. But then we get the cool nights to cool the grapes down and keep the acidity, and we keep it fresh. So we don't get the flabby character.
And it's something you don't really think about too much, but there isn't as many areas around the world that you would really imagine having those kinds of diurnal temperature ranges. And when they do exist, sometimes some great wine regions like Paso exist.
Yeah, exactly.
Your most standard and most vineyards are bilateral cordon, where you train it up, take it out, and go both ways on the wire. This is unilateral. There's only one side because the vine row ends.
And then there's a bilateral.
And this is a bilateral. The rest of them are all bi. That's a unilateral.
That's just simply how you train it.
Yep.
In conjunction with UC Davis, we went out throughout California and identified all of the vineyards that could be classified as over 100 years old. And we only kept the vines that were virus-free, that we could clone, that we could propagate. And we're one of 5 experimental vineyards that are now working with those clones. And the result will be, we will be making wine from each of these clones eventually, and then comparing them.
But yeah, you can see like these are old, dead ones that didn't make it. You can see here we tried to graft it 2 different times.
So you're just taking one simple bud?
Yeah, cut a slit.
Yeah.
Cut that bud off of that
is the bud
cane.
right there.
That's the bud right there.
Yeah.
And then you slip it in there.
Yeah.
And then you, with this tape, eliminate all the oxygen, and then it essentially it hardens.
Okay.
Almost like a scab.
And so they come together.
And then it starts to push.
There's so much going on in the vineyard. This wasn't enough time to really learn everything that I wanted to learn, but it's enough to get that energy flowing again and really love it.
The coastline here is amazing. There's so many places to surf, and it's a nice community, pretty laid back. I started surfing back in probably 1971 or 72. I was in about 7th grade. Been doing it pretty much ever since. Stood up surf for most of my life, but about 10 years ago, I ruptured a disc in my neck, so I started kneeboarding just to get back in the water. And the difference between kneeboarding and surfing, there's a lot of similarities. You still use a hard board, a surfboard. It's just a little shorter and a little fatter. And you can wear fins, so you can help kick into the waves, which got some nerve damage in my arm from the disc, so that's really beneficial. You can carve on the wave, you turn like a surfboard, and I'm in the water. That's the most important part.
I started surfing here, pretty much at this beach and the beach up the road when I was, I think, around 13.
He lives right at the beach, so he's a lucky bastard.
I live in Morro Bay. I live 2 blocks from the beach. I surf too much in front of my house because it's so easy.
It's such a perfect place to hide away the night.
However, coming back now, we're on the Peachy Canyon property again, and the whole family's here. Doug Beckett, Jake Beckett, Josh Beckett, Terry the winemaker, Brian the assistant winemaker. We've got quite a few shotguns floating around, and so we're gonna get in. I might challenge Terry to do a bit of skeet shooting, which is something I grew up doing. Hopefully I've still got the skills. Whoa.
Ah! Oh!
Yeah! Turn it off, Ben, cut, no more.
Pull. Ah, shoot. Hi. Ah, you got one. Tied up now. Oh. It broke again. Are you just trying to f with me on this one or what? Ready? Pull. Oh, hi. Tied it.
Blaze through Reno, toss a bag on the drop. Hit the El Dorado, looking out for the cops. Got a black bag waiting, pick it up at the well. Hit the asphalt, running like a bat out of hell. I got 43 hand dogs hot on my trail. I'll be a ghost by sunset.
I never shot a shotgun before.
Paso and the Becketts were a blast. Next, we're off to Colorado, one of the most obscure and unnatural places you could imagine to grow grapes, but we've heard they're up to some cutting-edge viticulture, and tomorrow morning, the crew and I get to go check it out firsthand.